What's good, y'all? It's Miles and we back with another video. The last video I did my top 10 songs of the year. In this album, we're doing top 10 albums of 2020. This video is also hard to do. There are a lot of good albums I released this year. I definitely have some honorable mentions that I want to get into before I get into the top 10. We have Don Toliver's Heaven or Hell, Rod Wave's Pray for Love, and Code of the Friends, Everything. All three of these artists are really young artists, and I'm super excited to see what type of energy they bring next year. I expect big things from these three artists. I think all of them are super talented, and these three you have to look out for coming up. They all have superstar potential and super big hit potential. But getting right into it, at number 10, I got Future's High Off Life. This album is really balanced. It has some of the biggest artists in the rap game currently. Travis Scott, NBA Youngboy, Lil Uzi, Drake, Lil Durk, all featured on this album. But the best thing about this album to me is that all those songs with those huge features aren't even the best songs to me. This album does have the big hit, Life is Good, one of the most streamed songs last year, and there are also some just solo tracks that Future is doing his thing on. Accepting My Flaws, Hard to Choose One, Too Comfortable, all amazing songs, and then the other songs with the big features on it obviously do their job. I think this is Future's best project since Future or Hendrix's self-titled projects in 2017. This was a super refreshing album to get from Future. I think he did a great job. Now coming in at number 9, we got Amine's Limbo. Definitely look for Amine in the future. I'm sure a lot of people got introduced to him with the song Caroline quite a few years back, or really didn't, was on his album a year or two ago. But this album is super consistent. Some of my favorite tracks has to be Chicken, Compensating, Mrs. Clean, Riri. There's a lot more on here. Woodlawn, Kobe, and stuff like that too. Great tracks. This album is kind of long. I think the deluxe is like 24, 25 songs. The rollout for this album was dope. The merchandise was dope, and I just love Amine's style on and off the track. There were some great underrated features on this album from some underrated artists like Tusi, Saba, JID, Summer Walker, and even Young Thug, who's not really an underrated artist, very highly rated in the rap game artist, had an amazing feature. Compensating off that is probably my favorite song on the album. I think people got to put some respect on Amine. He had a great project this year. Now coming in number 8, we got Shoot for the Stars, Aim from the Moon, Pop Smoke's posthumous album, RIP Pop Smoke. This album had some great features from some of the biggest names in music, and Pop Smoke managed to hold his own with any artist on any track. There are some all-time classic Pop Smoke songs on this album, and they created classics to come. Even some of the slow down songs and the interludes are some of my favorite tracks on this album. This is just one that I wish like you could pick and choose which ones you wanted. This album is very long. I think it's 30. I think it's even more than 30 songs, honestly. Maybe 33, 34 songs on here. But if I could really pick and choose my favorite, like 16 to 18, we might be talking top 3. But simply you just can't do that, so you have to judge of what we had, and that is a 34-song album, which is a lot of music. No matter who you are, no matter what artist it is almost impossible to go 34 for 34. I think Pop Smoke did go like 24, 25, maybe like 26 for 34, which is very impressive. But overall, there was a lot of highs on this album, and there was a couple like middle-of-the-road songs for me from Pop Smoke. RIP Pop Smoke for sure. If you don't have this album in your top 10, I don't know, maybe you gotta give it a listen. Now coming in at 7, we have one of the most hyped up albums of the entire year. People, and myself including, were dying to get this album. We have Man on the Moon 3 by Kid Cudi. Kid Cudi initially told us we were never going to get a Man on the Moon 3, but 3 songs in this album, he said this sounded like a Man on the Moon to him. The third track on the song is Another Day, which is one of my favorite songs of the album, and I agree, I get a real original 2009 Man on the Moon Kid Cudi feel from that, and I could definitely see the direction of where he was going with this album. Creatively, I think the purpose of this album did its thing. It did everything Kid Cudi wanted it to do, and it did everything that I wanted it to do from a listener standpoint. There are some great songs in the first couple 8, but after you get past Show Out, which is the Pop Smoke featured song, all the way down to the bottom, this album is honestly a 10 out of 10. Again, if I could pick and choose and just make that the single album, this album would definitely be top 3 for me, but I just can't simply do that. I'm not saying the front of the album is bad whatsoever, but the third and fourth act are simply some of the best music I've ever heard from Kid Cudi. And to put some of those songs in the beginning on the same level as those, in my opinion, I just could not do that. And there are a couple stronger albums in front of it. I definitely had to put this one in the top 10. I think 7 was a solid spot. Now coming in number 6, this was another incredibly hyped up album. We got Lil Uzi's Eternal Take. For this one, I'm including the entire thing, the first 18 songs we got and the additional 14. So I'm doing the entire 32 song album. Even though I guess technically he named it as like 2 different albums, I'm counting this as one album. Honestly, I think this one might be higher than a couple of the ones in front of it if I was just saying the first 18 songs. I think the deluxe of this one was just not as powerful and did not do as much for me as the first one. That might be just because because he gave me really everything I wanted out of the first one, and the second one just didn't like go too far for it. I get the deluxe has like Myron, Yes Sirski, Kobe, even has like Moon Relate. There are some other slept on ones on there, but the beginning and the first one we got was just stacked. My personal favorite songs are Venetia, P2, Chrome Hard Tag, Celebration Station, Lo Mein, Baby Pluto for sure. Had to get that one in there. There's a lot more on there. I'm not a big fan. There are some filler tracks in there, in my opinion, that don't do too much, like Pop or Silly Watch. I know a lot of people like those songs, but they're a little bit too repetitive for me, and it's just like I need a little bit more out of Uzi at this point. He's about 3-4 albums deep. But I'm not going to degrade this album anymore because I think it was an amazing album. The highs on this thing are definitely exceptional. This album has some of the best Lil Uzi music I've ever heard. Super refreshing to get new stuff. And just some of the music on here, simply no one else in the world can make something like this. Definitely well deserving of the 6th spot. I'm not even going to be mad at anyone if they put it higher than that. I definitely respect that. But the ones in front of it, for me personally, were a lot stronger. Now we're cracking into the top 5. Coming in at number 5, I have Lil Baby's My Turn. I'm including the deluxe for this one just like I did for Lil Uzi. In my opinion, the songs he added did a lot more than Lil Uzi did on the deluxe. Some of the songs like We Paid, Socially Distant, All In, and all that type of stuff that he added onto it, super fire. But again, the first half and the first drop of this initial album just blew me away. Top to bottom though, I respect the effort and the bars and the time that went into this album. Lil Baby definitely did his thing. I don't know if it was natural and this type of stuff came quick, but it definitely looks like he was born to rap. But overall, people are still underrating Lil Baby in my opinion. Although I do kind of think he is fairly rated, there are some people out there that don't think he deserves a hype at all and thinks he kind of sounds the same and all that. But he went crazy on this album in my opinion. Now number 4, we have Mac Miller's Circles, another posthumous album, but the first time I listened to this, it was just blew me away, bro. This is an incredible album, 12 songs, very concise, 49 minutes long, every second does its job, and it's overall just a beautiful album. There's a lot of heart-stabbing, heartbreaking lyrics in this one, but that's honestly what you signed up for if you get a Mac Miller posthumous album. But in total, a lot of that just resonates and gives off positive vibes for me. It's really hard for me to listen to this thing and just not crack a smile every now and then and just enjoy the fact that we have his music still like this. Also including the deluxe for this one, the deluxe added another 2 songs, making it 14 songs. Incredibly easy hour listen for me personally. Every single second just flows perfectly. Really in love with this album, but there's just a couple ones this year that did a little bit more for me. I don't know why. Now coming in number 3, in my opinion, everything in this top 3 is like a 9.5 to 10 out of 10 album for me. But coming in number 3, we have The Weeknd's After Hours. Incredibly impressive project for me. This album sounds like very glitzy and glamoury, like 80s and 90s type of stuff, but there's also some heartbreaking lyrics and some really deep songs on this one. But The Weeknd also carries himself with like a such cadence and a swagger on a lot of these tracks, kind of offsets that and just sounds perfect in my opinion. I think a really good relatable album to this one is definitely Take Care by Drake. That's kind of weird comparison out of left field, even though they did come up together with that XO and OVO type record deal or whatever. But just for that, there's the bangers on here. There's like Heartless, Blinding Lights that could be compared to like some of the big bangers on Take Care, like The Motto. But there are also some super deep songs like Shot For Me and obviously Marvin's Room that could be comparable to a lot of the songs on this album, like Scared to Live, Save Your Tears, Until I Bleed Out, After Hours itself. But overall, I think this thing was pretty amazing. Top to bottom, including the deluxe, this thing is 17 songs long. Again, a super easy listen for me. The visuals and the music videos that came after this album are amazing. I'm in love with them. Really super great works of art. Just like the song, every second is awesome of those videos, and every single second in these songs hits hard. Last thing I'm gonna say is not even about the album. People underrate The Weeknd so much, bro. This man has the trilogy, Beauty Behind the Madness, Starboy, and stuff like this. Amazing. Has one of the best and most consistent discographies of all time, in my opinion. I'm gonna tell you right now, number 1 was a recent release. If you listen to other of my videos, you might be able to tell which one's number 1. But coming in at number 2, we got Freddy, Gibbs, Alfredo. I will 100% admit to you biasly that this one probably should be number 1, but I just couldn't, in my opinion. I'm sorry, guys. This is just taking enjoyability into the factor. I put no enjoyability into this thing until I got to the top 2. The Alchemist and the production on this thing is perfect. Him and Freddie Gibbs are a match made in heaven, and top to bottom songs 1 through 10, this thing flows amazingly and is definitely the most consistent album of the year. There are no lows in this album, and the highs on this thing are incredible peaks. I think Freddie Gibbs has some of his best music on here. I put Scotty Beams in 1985 in my top 10 songs of the year, under that the 3 spot, but all the other songs from this thing are super hard hitting. Those 2 songs that I named, I don't even think are the most like streamed and most popular songs on this album. Those are the ones I enjoyed the most, and even the most popular ones in my opinion deserve all the hype. Freddie Gibbs continues to prove that there's no one really messing with him in the rap game. He does his own thing. His cadence and confidence on every single track proves that. He goes into the booth, nails down solid verses, sounding great, and The Alchemist, there's just nothing to talk about when it comes to his production, especially on this album. Don't think this album would be anywhere below a 9.5, and even later down the line, I think people might consider this his best album and a 10. His chemistry with The Alchemist is very similar to his with Madlib, who produced Pinata, and his latest one before this, Bandana, in 2019, and Pinata came out in 2015, I believe, possibly 2014, do not quote me on that, I'm sorry. But I could go into every song about this album, why I like it so much, why it's so good in my opinion, but we don't really have the time for that. Number 2 of the year for me. Now coming in number 1, I might get a lot of hate for this. I do kind of deserve it. Am I capping? Maybe a little bit. Came out very recently. I got Playboy Cardi's Whole Lotta Red. To be fair, I'm a super big Playboy Cardi fan. I'm sure you can probably tell if I'm putting it at number 1. But for me, this album does so much. I was so happy to get new Playboy Cardi. I'm really happy that he switched it up in a whole different way, and he executed the creative direction of this thing. Even if he got help from other people, the creative direction on this thing with Matthew Williams, if Kanye had anything to do with it, is amazing. I will be completely unbiased in the sense that there are some misses on this album, and some songs I simply cannot get down with. The crazy thing about this album, though, is that some of the biggest features from the biggest people in music, coming from Kanye West, Future, and Kid Cudi, obviously, are honestly not some of the best songs on this thing in my opinion. Like Metamorphosis and Go to the Moon are honestly probably like on my my bottom 5 on the album. Like I don't think they really add much to the album. Honestly, if Playboy Cardi wanted to, he could have just gone like the Forest Hills Drive thing. Just had no one else around him, nobody else on the album, no features, just him going in on the simple idea with some creative direction behind it. I think it would have been amazing and definitely would have been a 10. This one's a really you love it or hate it thing. I still think there's a lot of like people saying this album's trash and all those opinions are still putting out there, but I'm seeing a lot of people going out and saying that they really enjoyed this album. Playboy Cardi's confidence, cadence, and everything that goes into him making music like this is not really something we have to discuss. This type of music is just something that cannot be made by anybody else except Playboy Cardi, and I appreciate that. The production on this thing is great. The mixing on this thing is not that great in my opinion, but that might have been intentional. I really don't know if that was like an intentional type of thing, but this thing is not mixed as well as his other 2 albums, but it does kind of add something if you're like going for that like super hard hitting, late night, up all night, vamp anthem type of stuff. So maybe I'm kind of leaning towards that it was kind of supposed to do that, because there were a lot of very talented producers on here and stuff like that, and people working around them, so I feel like it should have been mixed properly, and there might be a reason why it's not. But anyway, I could go into every single song super deep. I'm already kind of going into it a little deeper, kind of turn this one into an album review, but this is my number 1 album. This is my favorite album. Biasly, I'm putting this one at number 1. If you made it this far, please consider subscribing. We appreciate everyone so far that's already subscribed. Check us out on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. We have a lot of Apple Music and Spotify playlists also out there. We're on everything. Check us out. Share with your friends. We appreciate all of y'all. Let's get it. Peace.